everybody, and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again today. And today on this episode of How to Get Good at World of Warships, we're going to be talking about some more cruiser positioning. So last time, obviously, we talked about the original two cruiser lines, mostly the USN Heavy and the Japanese Heavy Cruiser line. Now, of course, the USN Heavy Cruiser playstyle also does sort of translate to the USN Light Cruisers. But we have many other lines in the game. We have the French, the German, the British, the Italian. So we have all these other cruiser lines, and they, let's say, play at times similar, at times quite differently. So during the course of this video, and I'm going to try to, play most of these battles at 1.5 times speed just to sort of, make it so that it doesn't go on forever. I'm going to try to cover as much of this other cruiser playstyles as possible. The French cruiser line can utilize part of the American cruiser line playstyle, getting behind islands and then lobbing shells from there. But especially when you get to the H4, which has been nerfed pretty hard in terms of that acceleration issue, you're going to be spending a lot more time playing at range, just sort of slinging shells. And that is essentially the French playstyle. Early game, when there is a lot of enemy ships, where there's a lot more danger possible coming from various different areas of the map, you're really going to be spending a lot of time behind your battleships, behind a lot of your forward ships, and you're just going to be supplying a lot of sort of supporting fire. As the enemy team gets whittled down, as their numbers get reduced, then you can start to make certain moves, right? Either you're pushing or you're flanking or you're doing additional things like that. Now, do keep in mind that the French cruiser line does have access to the main battery reload booster, which is a nice sort of, let's say, a short duration burst of DPM. So what you want to usually save that for is you're looking at the enemy targets. Okay, are they in a situation where, let's say, they've got fires or they've got flooding and then they've burned their DCP? Okay, if they have burned their DCP, pop the main battery reload booster, of course, counting X number of seconds until you know the DCP is down, right? Pop it and then try to hit them with as much HE as possible in a very short period of time. Hopefully set them on fire. Hopefully get sustained fire. Another thing is if you're, let's say, running into a ship that's giving you a very nice broadside, okay, pop the main battery reload booster, have the AP loaded, see if you can citadel them quickly. Obviously, we're talking more cruisers, as battleships are generally going to be reasonably well protected. But yeah, the French playstyle is very sort of stay at distance, hammer things with HE, and then as the game progresses, you move closer to the opposing ships, and then you try to get better engagements one-on-one or whatever. You'll see in the early stages of this game, I've actually spent a lot of my time just sort of very far away, being sort of the least inviting target for enemy ships to shoot at, while I'm able to maintain my damage output. And that's really what you're doing. This playstyle is also sort of mimicked, and I have to make this clear, it's sort of mimicked by, let's say, the German cruiser line, which spends a lot of time in a kiting away and shooting kind of playstyle. The German cruisers, though, do have one unique sort of quirk that makes them sort of different, is the fact that they do have 27mm plating once you get up to the higher tiers. And that does allow them to in certain situations push on battleships with 380mm guns, get into close enough range torpedo. They also have a turtle back, which means at close distances that they're very unlikely to be citadeled, which means that in some situations you can just push battleships, period, and of course you have to have some degree of cover from islands or whatever to pop out and launch torpedoes. So this playstyle is very much sort of replicated with other cruiser lines. The British heavy cruisers also have this sort of playstyle, although do keep in mind that they do have reasonably good concealment, so at times they can kind of mimic the Japanese playstyle as well, but their fragility does mean that, again, distance and ability to dodge shells is actually going to be your primary saving grace. So the French line really sort of replicates in a lot of other cruiser lines. It is also replicated by the light cruiser portion of the Russian tech tree. So that is ships like, let's say, the Chapayev, the Shores, the Donskoy. Of course, in the future, we are getting that Russian cruiser line change. And, with the tier 10 for the light cruiser line will end with the Alexander Nevsky. I think this style will generally persist for the Russian light cruisers, although the Russian heavy cruiser line will be quite different. The heavy cruisers will play at times more similar to the way that the Russian battleships will play. They'll also borrow some aspects of the way that sort of Moskva will play. But that's something that I'm going to get to in a little bit, because first of all, we're talking about this style of play. Anyways, French style is very much this, right? You spend early game providing fire support. Only later on in the game, when you know where the danger is, you know what ships can blap you, you know where you need to be in order to avoid certain kinds of trouble, or where you have to go in order to deal with other things, then you can start to have a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more aggressive plays as well. So obviously by this stage of the game, I know what's, the enemy team's got left. They've got the Graz, which is obviously very far away from me at this point in time. They've got this one lone Hindenburg, and they have a CV. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty confident, because against the Hindenburg at like 34,000 HP, 35,000 actually, I should have a pretty good chance. My shells do good damage. I have a main battery reload booster. I've got a heal. I'm still relatively healthy, because the thing about the Henry IV especially is that, if you're around into the later stages of the game, the fact that you have all these tools, shall we say, the fact that you've got a heal, you've got a main battery reload booster, you've got the speed boost or whatever, and your armor profile is still pretty good as well, notably the French spaced armor. At the later stage of the game, you become a real pain in the butt to deal with. And that's the French thing. You at the beginning are still contributing your DPM, you're still contributing damage, you're still being annoying, you're still setting fires. And then as the game evolves and as you start to see more openings and more space and more things, then you go, all right, fantastic. Now I'm going to come in with my combination of speed, my main battery reload booster, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to do some real harm. Now, do keep in mind that this is almost universally true for all cruisers. Try to keep yourself alive. Don't do stupid things and get yourself blapped. Don't get deleted by a battleship that you didn't see coming. You try to keep yourself safe in the early game, contribute your DPM, obviously, but the later on in the game you're still around, the more of an annoyance you are. Okay, and so that's a key thing to remember if you're playing cruisers, regardless of what nation you're playing. Obviously, if you're playing the French, the German, the Russian lights, the British heavies, they have this style of play overall. They're more stay at a distance, hit you with shells, annoy the hell out of you, and make themselves not exactly the easiest things to hit. Because try to hit a maneuvering cruiser, an actively maneuvering cruiser at long distances in the open ocean, and especially as a battleship, if your gun velocity is not super great, you're going to find that generally is going to be an exercise in futility. You're just not going to do all that well. All right, so obviously in this game, we're wrapping up right now. We're just cleaning up the enemy team here. Just a little bit more to farm, I think, off that Audacious here. He's eventually going to make it to the border. We've all the caps. There's a Grozovoy who's just being harassed to death. And this is pretty much a game, set, match for us. Aside from the USN, the IJN, which both of those two lines taught some very important lessons, the next sort of major lesson is this style of play, which is the open water, stay at a sort of an uncomfortable distance for battleships, but a comfortable distance for you, and slingshots. That's pretty much it. All right, so we're going to move away from the French, Russian light, etc. playstyle, and we're going to move on to Moskva. Moskva is a very sort of special, unique beast of a cruiser. There's a lot of jokes, as you might have heard, about the battleship Moskva. That's kind of what she is. Moskva and Stalingrad both share unique quirks in their armor, right? They have an ice-breaking bow, which makes it so that, trying to hit closer to, let's say, the waterline in the bow area, we'll call shells to bounce from battleships. Even Yamatos can bounce there. They have 50 millimeter center deck armor, shells that hit there can bounce. So they're very, very durable cruisers. The primary playstyle of the Russian ultra heavy type cruisers in the form of Moskva and Stalingrad, because seriously, calling these things heavy cruisers is like not really fair to other heavy cruisers. Anyhow, they play a very sort of weird role in comparison to others. They are almost like a battleship. You can go to a position and hold it. Now, unlike a battleship, which is very dependent on AP and creating crossfires, Moskva doesn't care. Moskva can be in an angled state and then just pepper you with HE. Well, it itself doesn't take much damage from you. It can annoy you to death with HE pens and also fire damage. it's just not a fun ship to play if you're the opponent and this one is played correctly. There's two ways to really angle, shall we say, a Moskva. There is the stern roughly towards your opponent and trying to bait shots off your main belt armor. The other one is sort of pointing your bow towards them. Now, there's advantages and disadvantages to both playstyles. Pointing your bow towards the opponent is generally safer. Yeah, you'll notice the keyword, generally safer. Not very easy to get very, very high damage shooting at that part of your ship. Okay, I flubbed some shots in this game, all right? Anyhow, pointing your stern towards the opponent does give you the ability to bring all of your guns into action, like I'm doing right now against the Jean Bart. So if I was pointing my bow towards him only, I can only bring my forward 2 turrets, do like this, and I've got the advantage of bringing all my guns in. I'm still angled enough that if shots are coming in, they hit my main belt, they'll ricochet. This also gives me the added advantage where if things start to get dicey, I can just accelerate and continue to turn out, and that will allow me to disengage from the fight. You can do the same thing by pointing your bow sort of in the direction of the enemy and then bring your rear turret out. You can do that, but that has the added risk of if you need to disengage, well, guess what? You have to turn your ship full broadside in front of the opponent and they can clap you. Generally, sitting in this kind of position, pretty safe. The opponent might get a penetration here or there, but they're not likely to get massive citadel damage. Again, careful attention must be paid to angling your main belt, because if you screw up on this angling, somebody can absolutely devastate you because you are showing much more side. This is why if you're not very good with this, pointing your bow is generally a bit safer, but do keep in mind that the DPM when you're only using 6 of your guns instead of all 9 is a little bit more limited. Now, do keep in mind that Moskva also has a 12-kilometer radar, and it is tempting for some people to charge in at the beginning, burn the radar, maybe tag a destroyer, but then get themselves so out of position that they end up dying. Try not to do that, okay? If you want to, let's say, make use of your radar in some situations, in, let's say, domination, where you've got a cap that you got to take care of, what you can do is sail towards, let's say, an island that offers you good coverage on the side, because Moskva's most vulnerable aspect is, if somebody catches you full broadside, then it's just, they'll hit you really, really hard. So what you do is you put an island on that side so that people can hit you there, and then you can point your bow towards the opposing team, and you can be that very tanky cruiser that can spam HE, make people generally very uncomfortable, etc., etc., etc. And of course, position yourself in a way that your radar of 12 kilometers can cover the cap. Now, would be something else that you can do. Now, do keep in mind, you probably want to go into a mini-map, make sure you've got your radar circle selected so you can see exactly how far your radar extends. All right, other than that, another thing to occasionally remember as a Moskva player is if you do see broadsides, pretty much whatever it's from, load the AP. Moskva has very, very, very good AP. So good that if you run into even some certain battleships at pretty good distances sometimes, you can still get citadels. So make use of it. She's got railguns, and those railguns are quite good. Now, obviously, this exact same playstyle applies to Stalingrad. However, Stalingrad, with its armor piercing and its sort of unique capabilities with its AP, does use AP a little bit more than its HE. Its HE DPM is rather poor. This is where Moskva does have that advantage, right? The ability to just like repeatedly spam HE, where Stalingrad is a little bit more position-centric and requires a little bit more side to get the good AP damage in. But overall, the lessons of both ships are quite similar. Fantastic armor profile, allowing them to be quite durable in certain positions. And they can hold a position, like if you just have, let's say, a Moskva plus, let's say, a battleship, those two ships are not going to be easy to kill if they're played properly, and they can hold positions for a long period of time. But of course, don't just be the, I'm going to stay here and I'm not going to move. You have to pay attention to what's going on in the battle. As the game progresses, you might have to make other moves. You have to make some pushes sometimes. Now, Moskva's armor profile does allow her to push quite aggressively sometimes. Also, in sort of mid-ish to late-ish game, when you're starting to have a better understanding of where enemy ships are, you can decide what you need to do. You can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go very aggressively down this way, bring my firepower to bear here, and enemy's not going to like me showing up here, let's say, for example, right? Now, what we've seen so far of the Russian heavy cruiser, the new lines, right? This is like Petropavlovsk, Riga, for example. They're going to mimic this style of play for the Moskva. Now, the advantage of those ships, assuming they don't change as of the moment, is that they have the added benefit of being very, very stealthy. That's one of the things that I was quite shocked by when I was testing those ships. Of course, do keep in mind that that could change, obviously. I'm talking a little bit ahead of, this video's patch number, right? But that concealment on those new Russian heavies allows them at times to actually fall off the deck, which Moskva really will struggle with, same with Stalingrad. So those ships have the beautiful armor, they've got the beautiful guns, they've got all these things going for them, and they've got the armor. One other thing to keep in mind, this can happen with a Moskva. Even when you're thinking that you're angled enough, sometimes RNG rolls against you, and it did in this case. The Massachusetts was able to penetrate, hit my Citadel, and I ate 17k damage. But the minute I go, oh, that's not good, and plus the Massachusetts is low enough where I can, just utilize my front guns, I'm just going to turn myself in reverse, point my bow more towards him, and the Massachusetts is going to struggle really to get any more damage on me. So you can see the shots that are going to come here, just not going to do all that much. Like one pen here, one pen there, maybe. That's about it. So, but remember, I got the DPM, so I can get them down. All right, so that's pretty much Moskva in a nutshell. She's pretty unique because this type of battleship-like heavy cruiser is really unique to the Russians. There's just no other cruiser line that has this level of durability, like, period. And it seems like we're going to get more of them. But yeah, the Russian heavy cruisers, shall we say, they're going to be quite a unique specimen in the game. The British light cruisers are also sort of unique in their playstyle, but I'm going to get to them in a second. All right, so by this point in the game, as you can see, I spent a whole chunk of this game actually almost being in the same spot, and Moskva really is like that. She can spend a large portion of the game being camped in like sort of one spot. As a Moskva player, you have to be happy with that. You have to be okay with just sitting in one place, holding a position, hitting people. And only when the situation is right do you start to make a move. Now, the reason that is the case for this particular ship is she is big. Moskva is a big ship. So you don't want to put yourself in a very, very sort of crappy position and then try to recover from it, because it's very, very hard to do. You screw up with Moskva and that could be it for your game. You could very easily eat a huge chunk of damage and then let's call that GG. So in this particular case here, you'll see that I'm now pushing in quite aggressively, and I see a Moskva and I see a Venezia. Now, Moskva initially is what I was shooting at, but the Venezia is what I will eventually switch over to, because the Venezia is showing far more of a broadside. I'm going to contribute there with a double Citadel. Venezia is down to like 3,500, pretty low, and is probably going to die. Now, you'll see me sort of pushing in quite aggressively. Even the Smolensk, who is spamming me with HE, isn't really doing all that much. Moskva really does have that level of durability that makes her stand out, shall we say, among cruisers. Anyways, this battle is pretty much wrapped up here. Enemy Moskva's got a couple thousand more HP. I'm switching back over to my high explosive, and I'm just going to tag him here. There we go, get one more fire. He's actually, nope, there we go. He's getting burned down right now and getting spammed down by HE fire. Let's see if I can get, oh, never mind. I got the kill there from fires, fantastic. Okay, and it's just one little Smolensk left, and this battle's pretty much concluded here. We've got the ship advantage, we've got the point advantage, we've got the cap advantage. See if I can actually get this Smolensk kill. Okay, AP salvo did not go well the first time. Probably should have switched over to HE, considering the Smolensk is kind of low, but there's something about Citadeling Smolensk. Maybe that's just a weird thing for me, but anyhow, I hit him there, he gets tagged, and he's done. All right, finally, British light cruisers. All right. British light cruisers are an interesting breed of cruisers in the game. They also have a relatively unique-ish type playstyle. Now, a lot of this is caused by the fact that they have mono ammo type, AP only. Now, their AP does have improved auto bounce angle, so that is a positive, but you still ideally want to position yourself in a way that you can get side shots. Shooting at stuff that's angled, bow in towards you, not super effective. So you ideally want to get onto side, because side is where the beautiful damage comes from. So what are you going to do? You're going to use the British light cruiser's excellent concealment to try to get yourself into those kinds of positions. Now, you are going to utilize, of course, the USN quirk of, if you can find a good island, fantastic, use it. You're also going to be playing a lot with your concealment. Now, the British light cruisers, you do also have access to smoke. So when you do get into the right positions and you have sufficient vision, pop your smoke, come out, start hitting stuff really, really, really annoyingly. And that's really the key thing about the British light cruisers. They are very annoying when played correctly. In a combination of excellent concealment that can only be countered essentially by radar ships and destroyers. In some games where, let's say, you don't have a lot of radar ships or your destroyers have died, the British light cruisers played correctly are just the major pain in the ass. And if they do manage to get on your side, they will hurt. Without question, they will hurt you. So in this battle, by the way, I'm in Edinburgh playing solo in a game where, I'm running into tier 10s, and you'll see what I try to do, right? Initially, utilized my concealment to get into a good position near the island here. So with this island and this area, I can support my Kagero as he goes for the cap. I can also duck behind the island if I need cover. I've also got a smoke, which I did use, pop the smoke, start shooting from it. Should have probably moved a little bit more, and typically when you're in your smoke, you do want to be shifting a little bit, because you don't want somebody to blind fire you. So luckily I didn't get super punished by the NC. Could have been though, so that is definitely something for you to keep an eye out for. Although, again, when you're at the tier 8, 9, 10, you've at least got that very, very good super heal, so you can kind of recover if you do end up beating a random citadel here or there. This game, obviously, for my team, not looking so hot, because what's going on is the enemy has the majority of their ships here, and we don't have that many things over here. Now, a lot of our ships have gone to the other side. One of our turpitses even went to the middle. Anyways, we're not going to talk about him. So I need to get away from here as quickly as possible. Now, the British light cruisers do have an amazing acceleration, so if you can get yourself turned around properly, don't show a full broadside to something, you can generally get yourself out of there. Yep, Alsace shooting at me. This is probably going to hurt. I have a couple of ships behind me shooting at me as well. I'm going to be eating some damage. Again, I do have access to that heal, so when the opportunity allows, that's what I'll be using. I was also hoping that my fantastic concealment allows me to get away as soon as the Des Moines radar either ran out or I outran his radar range. And eventually that does happen. I eventually run away from all the ships that can possibly spot me, but it also gives you a relatively good idea that I think right now there's no destroyers around me. Most of the stuff that's going to be around me here are the heavy cruisers and the battleships. So excellent, allowing me to now decide how I want to position in this kind of situation. Obviously, as you can see, the whole team is essentially retreating, so I do want to try to help, right? Just pitch in a little bit of DPM, see if I can slow this push down a little bit, because it's getting a little dicey. If they come out through this area uncontested, roll through us, take the cap, life is going to get a little bit complicated. So I do expend one of my smokes here, get some shots in, but I also know that there is a Des Moines and there's also a Baltimore in this area, so I'm very wary that their radar is around me. But you'll see, every time I've basically settled myself down, start engaging, I've generally tried to position myself in some kind of way that I can get side shots. Really don't want to be shooting bow in things, okay? And that's really a key thing about the British light cruisers. You're really looking for those opportunities to find the side shots. Try not to shoot at stuff that's charging towards you. Initially, you'll see at one point in time this Des Moines is going to turn in, point his bow towards me, and I'm simply not going to shoot. I'm going to wait until he's going to offer me something more before I open fire. Again, British light cruiser playstyle is relatively unique. You're constantly paying attention to where enemy ships are, what positions they are, where's the radar. You're going to constantly have to be very on your toes when you're playing this line. So the British light cruisers as a whole generally is a very sort of skill dependent line. If you are not aware, if you don't know what you're doing, this is not a line for you. because you're not going to be able to make it, sort of the maximum use of the ship's characteristics. So here you'll see, I don't shoot. Okay, now the Des Moines has given me a full broadside. Now I'm going to shoot. And even for something like an Edinburgh, which doesn't have the rate of fire of something like a Minotaur, for example, you'll see that I'm still able to chunk that Des Moines for a good chunk of damage. But you also notice that I only fire 2 salvos at him, and then I don't keep shooting because I know that there's also a bunch of battleships still reasonably far away, 15 kilometers for the Alsace, about 14 km for the NC, but I don't want to make that an easy blap for them, right? So, I take my 2 salvos against DM that's made a mistake, drop him low enough that he becomes an easy target, and then just sort of disengage from that Des Moines fight, turn my attention onto something else. If you can get broadsides, the British light cruiser AP can still really hurt. So you'll see 1 salvo against the NC, it was like 7k damage. And, unfortunately for me, though, the NC, initially I thought he was going to keep pushing up, decided nope, he didn't want anything to do with that, so he turned away. And of course, this minute he gets kind of angled and is pulling distance on me, not the most fun, as the British light cruiser arcs are a little bit floaty. So I'm just going to transition my attention over to the Alsace. That was a little bit more showing me a side and hitting this battleship. Keep in mind that as a British light cruiser, when you engage, you want to engage on opposing ships' sort of side. Now, it doesn't have to be fully broadside because, like I said, you do have those improved auto bounce angles, but enough of a side where you can reliably hit shells and get good damage. Primarily, you want to be that annoying pest on a flank. And that's sort of the most true of the British light cruisers. Played correctly, their combination of smoke appearing the wrong side for you because you've got other things to worry about just makes them very, very annoying to play against. Anyways, my smoke is about to run out. Fire off my last salvo here, and then it's a reanalysis of the situation. Is there enemy ships like this Neptune that I could shoot, but if I did shoot, I would reveal my position? Probably not. So I'm not going to take a shot there. I'm going to reposition and go somewhere else. Judging by the last spotted position of their Fletcher and judging by the position of our other ships, my guess is that Fletcher will try to go around, eventually head to the B cap. And enemy team looks like eventually they'll try to make some kind of push there as well. We have a good sort of line of ships as well defending this area. So I think I'm going to make my way towards this big island near the B cap. If I see a broadside, I think I've got a bit of a Tirpitz broadside there. I am going to fire a salvo here. Maybe fire another one. I am aware that there is still a Baltimore on the side here as well, but he's a little bit further back as well. Okay, there's the shells. That's okay. All right, I'm going to stop engaging that Tirpitz right now. I'm going to move towards this island because, if their Fletcher does go for the B cap and in situation where I, let's say, have to engage the destroyer, I want to be close enough where I can get my hydro to function and engage him at closer distances if I have to, or at least help my team do so. Okay, there we go. There's the B cap starting to flip. Pretty sure that is the Fletcher there. All right, so there's the radar. That is the Baltimore's radar. Okay, radar's off. That's good. Baltimore's burned it already, so that's positive for me. But I have no hydro right now. I've got a smoke, but no hydro. Don't think I want to directly charge out right away, so now I'm going to utilize an island, right? Just get my front guns out. It's fine. Get some damage here on this Bismarck that's charging in. All right, I also see where the Baltimore is, but I know the Baltimore has expended the radar, so that's not an issue right now. Okay, I am spotted. That is fine. Pop my smoke. There we go. Get all my guns out. And some reasonably good damage here, I think, on this Bismarck. Again, see, I'm on the side, not really where the Bismarck wants me. Gonna pick up some damage there. Perfect. All right, so I'm taking a look here. They still have a Tirpitz, a Chappie. They're pretty far away, but the Baltimore's close at 6 kilometers. And again, what's the last thing he really wants, showing up right now? Probably me in this kind of a position that's got enough of a side to shoot at. And you can see you can get good chunks of damage out of things, right? Cruiser shows up, gets clapped the wrong way. There we go. Get another shot in. I'm going to blind fire him because I know his rough trajectory. And there's kill for myself. And then finally, there is going to be the little Fletcher who's in the cap. I've got a hydro on, so I'm going to push him more aggressively here. I'm going to clap him for a little bit more damage, and that is pretty much my game. Tier 8 ship in a Tier 10 game. In this one, end up with over 2,100 base experience, and just a very, very good game as a bottom tier ship, which goes to show you that in World of Warships, correct play, correct positioning, correct everything, can lead to some very, very good results. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, which covered additional cruiser positioning for different lines and different tech trees and different playstyles. Hopefully it was useful to all of you. The next video up in the series should talk about some destroyer positioning. So until next time, folks, take care of yourselves. Be safe out there. Of course, stay home. That's what all of us are doing right now. Be safe. Keep your family safe. Keep yourself safe. And until next time, take care. Have yourselves a wonderful week. And I will catch you all either on stream or I'll talk to you all again soon.